This episode of the School of Laughs podcast is brought to you by Jonathan Wright, who just signed up for the online Diamond Edition of the writing course. Thanks, Jonathan. We're also brought to you today by Audible.com. Get a free audio download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/School of Laughs. They've got over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can listen to them right there on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Once again, that's audibletrial.com/School of Laughs.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast, brought to you by schooloflaughs.com. Whether you're an aspiring comedian, a part-time pro, or a speaker who wants to become funnier, this is the podcast for you. We'll break down tools, tips, and techniques to help you get bigger, better, and more bookable. And now, here's the show.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast. Rick Roberts here, and today I've got a fun interview with my good buddy Daren Streblow. If you don't know Daren, he is a Minnesota guy who does comedy, clean comedy. He also has his own weekly show on iHeartRadio, the Daren Streblow Comedy Show, and it's a lot of fun. I've been on his show several times. You can check that out at DarenStreblow.com. That's DarenStreblow.com. And go on there and check out the old comedy show. He's had me on there a couple times. I'll link to those episodes in the show notes, but a great show if you like clean comedy in general. And Daren's a very insightful and intuitive guy. And we have a lot of fun talking today on the show, and I know you're going to enjoy that podcast here in just a second. Of course, I have to let you know what's going on. First off, huge thanks to all the former students who came out to the graduation show on Tuesday here in Nashville at Zanies. From top to bottom, the entire 90-minute show was full of people that have taken my comedy classes, and it was just too much fun to see people that are now emceeing and doing a solid job, as well as closing shows and doing a solid job, sprinkled in with some of our newest students who did their 3-minute sets, and everybody had a good time. Just a great overall experience. So thanks again for attending that and for performing in it, you guys that are listening that were there. If you're interested at all in taking the online comedy class, you can do that. Check it out at schooloflaughs.com. Click the online comedy class link. For those of you that want to take the class live, we're going to have that one more time this year in November 7, 21, and 28. Those are all Mondays. We'll meet downtown Nashville for 2 hours each of those sessions to cover writing techniques, joke structure, and how to prepare a set, especially your first set. Or if you've been doing comedy for a while and it's just not clicking, you may need to know the basics and fundamentals more than you think you do. So you can jump in and take the class there. It's $200 even, probably the best deal in comedy anywhere, and a lot of fun. You'll get to meet other people that are pursuing comedy. And of course, any former students who have taken the writing class, you have that lifetime membership, and you can come in and sit in the room and share the experience all over again from your new perspective further on down the comedy road. So again, that is November 7, 21, and 28. You can email me, schooloflaughs@gmail.com, and ask any questions you like, or let me know you'd like to pre-register. All right, let's get into this interview with comedian and radio host Daren Streblow. Daren Streblow, how's it going, buddy?
Rick, good to be with you, man. How's it going?
I'm good. Are you in the Great White North?
I am. Yeah, it's a cold place, but a good place to write comedy because there's nothing else to do, so works out pretty well.
That's awesome, man. So you just got off the road. You said, where were you at this past weekend?
I was on a run with Tim Hawkins through, I think we were in the Twin Cities for a couple days, and then we went up to, where was it, North Dakota? Grand Forks, and then we ended up in Rapid City, South Dakota. So I did one of my routines, and he played the pan flute behind it. And it changed the way I deliver. You know, I usually kind of talk like this up there, and up there as with the pan flute, it's like, from the land of 10,000 lakes, you know, it just changed the way I do it. The audience really ate it up. It was really a lot of fun.
Oh, I hope you got a recording of that.
Yeah, I do, actually. I got some nice video. I'm going to probably play it on my radio show, too. So it's nice to be with another human being and kind of learn about how they write and what they do on stage and just kind of study them and get ideas for yourself. It's kind of inspiring.
Yeah, and that's a good contrast of comedians, you and Tim Hawkins. You're a positive guy, but your stand-up, how would you describe your stand-up?
I think the guy up there that I let out on the stage kind of, he's upset that life hasn't been more smooth. The awkwardness is driving him insane, and he can't seem to wrap his mind around why things keep getting awkward. So he's just up there kind of railing against it and fighting against it and finding some comfort in an audience that'll listen to his stories. So yeah, he can be a little down sometimes. He gets a little screechy. He yells quite a bit, and not a typical Minnesota trait. So that's unusual for him. But yeah, I think your description is right on. Yeah.
And how long do you think it took you to get to that point where you could kind of separate yourself and kind of even determine that and even use the third person to describe?
I don't even know if it's healthy, Rick, but that's what I do. Yeah, I guess I started thinking about maybe just a couple of years ago. I just started noticing that the guy on stage was very different from the guy that I allow myself to be in public. And part of that, as you know, if we were the guy we were on stage in real life, we would have no real relationships because it would drive everybody away. You know, the intensity of who that is up there, the subject matter, how quick he is to point out goofy inconsistencies. I mean, if you do that with your friends or your spouse long enough, it's not going to turn out well, you know? So I saw that discrepancy. I said, well, is that really me up there? And it's like, yeah, it actually is. It's me, as the old phrase goes, you know, it's me turned up to 11, but it's the protected me, the one that I really have to kind of keep reined in if I want to, like I said, have any meaningful relationships in my life, because he tends to drive people away. As I discovered in high school and college, yeah, if I let him out too often, it didn't make my life very good. So,
have you ever thought about using a straitjacket as your logo? It's like a real Batman kind of problem where you
yeah.
you kind of got the dark side that is Batman, but you've also got the philanthropic side of Bruce Wayne. So,
yeah. Well, do you find that true for you, Rick? I mean, your stage character's pretty different from your real life. I mean, you're much more kind of cool in real life, kind of real super laid back. You know, you not make a lot of trouble. At least that's what I found when I've hung around you.
I'm pretty quiet off stage, and the only thing I noticed differently is I have a lot more energy when I'm on stage than when I'm off. When I'm off, I'm like an old NFL player that can't walk anymore. Too many times beaten up, but I know if I just hang in there one more year, there's a pension in it.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, it's like, you know, they're like Peyton Manning last year. You know, whatever they had to do to get him ready for game day, they did it. And then he can play through the pain. And then off stage, he's just a hobbled old dude.
I heard stories, and I really can't confirm this. This is secondhand, but I think George Burns had a handler right up until he was, you know, through his 90s. And basically his handler would just, from what I understand, basically bring him backstage, get a chair, prop him up in the chair, kind of, you know, straighten his outfit up, you know, make sure nothing was on his face, kind of give the thumbs up, walk out, the curtain would part, and then George Burns would come alive for his probably 2 hours, I would imagine. And then the curtain would close, his head would slump, and his handler would come in and take him out, almost like a mannequin, you know, and I always thought that was interesting. So he had the adrenaline, and the stage brought him to life for those brief periods. And then he was back to being the old man that he was off stage. But I guess I feel like that too, a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, I just saw an interview with Don Rickles, and Dan Rather kept really just saying, like, you know, on your tombstone, what would you like it to say? And Don turns to the cameraman and he goes, he's trying to marry me right here on his own special. You know, Rickles was still so sharp. Occasionally it would take him like a second or two to think of somebody's name, but like he had his wits about him still. And I just thought, you know, those guys at the level they were doing, I mean, I'm not doing 8 shows a week and only dark on Monday like he is in Vegas. So it's like, you know, as long as you can keep your mind healthy, you've still got to run at this thing. Yeah, that's true. Now, you got started, you did radio first, is that correct? And then jumped into stand-up?
Yeah, I was pretty young when I started in radio. I think I was 16 and I did it. And then I got into full time by the time I was into college. And then I think I quit when I was 26 and then went into full time stand up. I'm 45 now. So,
Yeah, see, that's a good run right there. It's 19 years.
yeah, going on 19 years. Yeah, it's been fun. I really like it. I think I'll keep going. It's, I still haven't got everything turned. I was having this conversation yesterday with somebody. You meet comics that are 2 years in the game and they're just upset that people aren't taking them real seriously and they haven't, no one understands the genius of who they are. And I've said to a couple of them, when you've been in the business for 2-3 years, you're really just a beginner and it's okay. I was like that too, but I finally had somebody kind of step on me and say, hey, pay your dues and take your time because this takes a long time to learn this stuff. And boy, was that great advice, So I even into it 18 years, I just feel like I'm just starting to figure some of this stuff out. It takes that long to make that many mistakes and learn what's funny, the intersect of what's funny in your mind and what's funny to a general audience, the intersect of those two spheres, how to move on stage. Or just as we were talking about a little bit earlier, what is your stage character? Who is that person? How do you get that person out there? What does the audience want to hear from that person? These questions take years and years to answer. So
Yeah, it could take until you've written your third hour of material or your second life before you actually know.
Yeah. No, that's right. What? Yeah, it's a kind of a. Did you ever, it's like, what's your hook? Let's find what your hook is, and then everything will fall into place. Well, finding your quote unquote hook is very, very difficult. And before you can really find a hook, you really have to find out, well, who is that person on the inside? And to get to that person on the inside is a pretty deep and sometimes dark journey, where you have this discovery of yourself that is often scary, and as a person of faith, I mean, my faith in Christ is the only thing that has kept me able to go even deeper inside and see all the garbage that's in there, and if I didn't have forgiveness, I don't know if I could deal with that journey. I mean, that's a hard journey, but then finally kind of unearthing, okay, this is who you are. This is that guy. Now, what does he say? How does he move? And what is his relationship to an audience? And he's like we say, it just takes years and years to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, the first part of the journey is just getting good at the tools of comedy, the timing and delivery. And then, if you're like me, I worked through a bunch of material that really was not about me at all. It was all pop culture references and that kind of stuff. And then as I got the mechanics down, I got bored with talking about that stuff and started talking about real things and embellishing real stories and making them fun for the stage. And, through that, now I'm feeling like I've kind of got both sides of the equation going. And I'm just now, I think, 25 years into this whole thing. So it takes a while. You got to give, I think you said it good, like the garbage inside. You got to green light that garbage to get out on stage instead of trying to be the comedian you want people to think you are. Just be the person you are, and then they'll figure out what kind of comedian you are with that.
Boy, if every comedian could have what you just said on a plaque on a wall and look at it every day, I mean, I think that would be very helpful because, I think for many, many years I was trying to be the comedian I wanted everybody to think that I wanted to be, and he's not attainable and he's not interesting, to be honest. I think the times I've really been vulnerable on stage, I mean, really vulnerable, and taken some of those emotional energies to the stage of vulnerability and really just talking about who I was. I mean, that's really when the biggest connections have happened with audiences. The problem with it is it's terrifying, especially for an introvert, which I am, and I sense that you are too. It's terrifying to be that vulnerable with an audience. I know plenty of guys and gals that they love that. It's just the more raw they can get in front of anybody, the more energy they get. I'm not like that. It's terrifying to put that stuff out in front of people, and just, I writhe just thinking about it. But the more I've been able to do it, I think the audience connects with it better.
You said it really well there. No comic starts their journey probably by saying, I want to learn how to connect with an audience. They always want to conquer the audience instead of connect with them. And if you start with connecting, everything else is so much easier, don't you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I suppose there's conquering elements to the process, but I think that's true of just a relationship with another person that you don't know. You have to get over their initial discomfort. You have to sort of win, in a sense. You have to win the right to. It's not the right to attention, but it's showing them that you're worth the time to listen to. And you're doing that in early stages with, I don't know, fast and furious material, or just funny stuff, or just having an amazing character that's just very interesting. It's like people can't take their eyes off you. Those are early stage of winning them over. But I think, like you say, the more you connect with them, the more they feel like you're on their side or listening to them. I think the better. That's why I'm always, when I'm on stage, very cognizant of what's going on in the room, as far as even things like babies crying, or somebody drops drinks, or stuff. You have to acknowledge that you're in the room with them, and just even just say, hey, what was that? I mean, even if it's not funny, that's a connecting point, because he's with us. He sees this. He knows what's going on. I can feel the audience just sort of relax when those kinds of things happen. And, I think the connecting is absolutely the most important thing you can try to do up there.
Yeah, we had Nate Bargatze on a while back, and he made a comment that he got into this kind of groove where he would just step on stage and just start going, and some of his stuff wasn't working as well, and somebody just had to remind him, like, take a couple seconds and just acknowledge that there's somebody in front of you before you start launching into your material, and he's like, yeah, so now he just goes out and kind of looks at him like, hey, okay, we're all here, let's do this thing, so yeah. Just something super short like that was the difference.
It's funny you say that, because I will, and I don't know why I picked this up, but I'll go out and I'll just say, let me look at you guys for a minute. And I'll just look around the room and really just make eye contact. And so I never do it again. I never pause that long in a show, but I will, for what seemed, it was probably about 10 seconds, just look them, just look at them. And it's funny because they start to giggle. I don't know why. But they think it's weird that I'm just kind of observing everything. But I think what's happening is, he's with us here, and then they're ready to kind of, well, what's he have to say? And if I can get in the next couple minutes enough things in there where they feel like I've won them over, they'll keep listening, Yeah,
it's kind of like when the pilot stands at the door at the beginning of the flight and kind of looks at everybody getting on board. I kind of like that pilot better than the one I never see.
Yeah.
It's really the same. You're taking these people somewhere. They're riding with you for 90 minutes or whatever it might be. So take a look at you might want to kick some of those people off the plane before you take off.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Tell me a little bit about your show, your comedy show, which is on iHeartRadio, and people can get it anywhere through that app, but also through your website too. Tell me about some of the comics you've had on there and the goal of that program.
Yeah, thanks. It's I was approached by a syndicator about 5-6 years ago and said, I really want to have like a clean comedy program on the radio, and I don't know how many stations we'll get on, but let's just give it a shot. And I was interested in it because I had like you said, a background in radio. So we launched, I think it was about 5 years ago. And at first, I think what he wanted to do as the producer was have one comedian per week and then just do all their material for a whole hour. And then I sort of said, it might be more fun to have a little more variety, maybe have a featured comedian and have bits from several other comedians. And then I said, it'd be kind of fun to do a monologue in it. And he's like, well, I don't know. You think you want to do that? And then I said, yeah. And so I got another comedian, David Pendleton, on just kind of to bounce off of. And then that eventually developed. We had like up to 3 comedians with me just talking about stuff at the beginning of the show, introducing bits. Then we brought in parody music and interviews and stuff. And where it stands right now, about 5 years later, is there's, a lot of stand-up in it, funny stories, parody music. But then we also kind of get into hard issues a little bit. We talk about important things in relationships and things. So I'll have Tim Hawkins on in an upcoming episode, and we're not only talking about comedy, but we're also talking about rejection and how you deal with that. Not only because comedians know something about rejection. How do you deal with that from your work on the stage or in your relationships with other people and stuff like that? And so it's hoping that people who listen to the show not only laugh, but they kind of walk away with some stuff that nourishes them a little bit in their spirit. So so we're on about 115 stations right now. iHeartRadio. We have our own app on iPhone and Droid, and it's free. And you can listen on the station, or like you say, on the website, DarenStreblow.com. And a lot of people really like it. It's been really fun. It's fun to sit behind the microphone again after being away for so many years and enjoying it from a comedian's perspective. You do radio differently when you're a comic than if you're back when I did radio when I was a kid. It was all about being smooth, good news, good music, 24 hours a day. It's that guy.
Right.
You can't be that guy on stage and have people not throw things at you. So it becomes very different, very personality driven. So we've really enjoyed it, actually.
That's cool. I'll make sure I'll link to that stuff in the show notes so people can click through and subscribe and all that good stuff. Yeah, no, I've listened to it a few times, and I've got them for my next drive on my iPad. Is there any other comics you haven't got on there yet that you would like? Anybody you're trying to wrangle in?
Well, I really wanted to have Brian Regan on there.
Yeah.
They politely declined. And a show like mine isn't going to bring a whole lot to Brian's career.
Right.
That's like, we're on 115 radio stations, Brian. Oh, really? Yeah. National television.
Maybe you could take snippets of his different appearances and make a appearance.
Yeah.
It's good to be here on the Daren Streblow show.
Don't think I won't try it. Yeah.
You got the editing skills.
But I have a lot of great comics on there. Yourself, Tim Hawkins is on there, Ken Davis, Bob Smiley, Bone Hampton, Anita Renfro. All these people, for you and I, we run together, all of us who work clean. We all kind of know each other. It's this kind of weird fraternity. And so I thought it'd be fun to bring the audience into that world a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting fraternity of clean, and the hazing of that in that fraternity. I mean, how many different ways can you use a pencil eraser?
Yeah.
As a clean comedian, that's like your biggest asset is just that eraser. Because I can't say that.
That's right. It's stuff like, but it does make you more, dig deeper. A little, just try to do things a little more creatively, to try to, it's not so much, it's the thing with blue comedy, the reason it works so well is it's so emotional,
Mm-hmm.
And if you work clean, you're trying to tap into deep emotion, and do it without using these other things that some people find offensive. And sometimes when you find that sweet spot, boy, the reactions are wonderful.
And don't you think that sweet spot it kind of hovers around honesty?
Yes. Absolutely.
That's the real sweet spot, I think, of all comedy, but clean comedy too is, and you said it pretty interesting there too. You're trying to do it in a certain way, and I think when it's bluer comedy, you're just going straight for the laughs. But in the cleaner things, sometimes you're going through the cerebral portal to get into the emotional place by picking maybe smarter or cleaner words or what have you. So the journey's just a millisecond longer if people will stick with you for it.
Yeah, yeah.
But the payoff is just as good, if not better, I think.
And when I watch some guys who work blue, the real effective ones, they are being vulnerable and honest within that context. No matter how you're doing comedy, it's that vulnerability and self-disclosure and connection that's going to win the day rather than how you do the comedy. Yeah.
I think that's true. At what point in your journey do you think you began to open up a little bit more? 6 or 7 years in, or a little bit longer than that?
Say it was probably 10 years in before I really started to kind of pull out stuff that really was stuff I felt uncomfortable talking about, because it showed me in a negative light.
Has there been instances where you revealed something to a crowd full of strangers before you've revealed it to your family?
Yes, I think so. Because, as you know, Rick,
family doesn't listen?
family's not always a great barometer of what's going to be not only appropriate, but if it's going to be funny. I was reading McKee's book, Sorry. Have you read that, Rick?
No, I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, it's mostly about screenwriting, but it's about story elements. And he makes the point, I think he was talking about the Terminator movies. You know, the very first Terminator movie, Schwarzenegger was the villain and as the robot. But the way they wrote the robot, like when he would look at people, certain things would come up on the screen, and sometimes they were laugh out loud funny things that the robot was seeing. Or the way he was, you know, being violent toward people, that was funny to certain people in the context, you know. But McKee was saying, I can tell that whoever wrote this film loved that villain. They loved that character. And because they loved it, it was written in a certain way where you enjoyed being around that character, even though they were the villain. And he says, I can always tell when a writer hates a character. And I've noticed that too now. Sometimes when you're watching a television series or whatever, if you just not only see this person as a villain, but you just can't stand them, and it's obvious there's the worst thing about the show. You can be pretty sure there's a writer behind it that hates that character, you know. And I think you can do that on stage too if you really just despise the subject matter in a way that you just obviously poisoned. It's not going to be a fun thing to watch, I guess. Bottom line.
Yeah, like that. I would say if you hated the character, you wouldn't develop it as much, so there's not multiple layers or any kind of depth there where people can feel empathy towards it.
Yes, because as an artist, you're going to put them in a very black and white sort of, you know, all bad, all horrible, all miserable. And first of all, they're not going to believe it. But second of all, they're not going to like the venom there, you know. So I found that to be true for myself anyway.
No, I think and that's an important thing is, you know, new comics listening, even comics been doing it for a while. If the crowd doesn't understand a little bit about your struggle in the first place, then as soon as you have a confrontation with somebody, they won't understand why you have it. So having some bits early in your show that kind of describe who you are, where you're coming from, your point of view, is only going to pay dividends later on. So spend a little bit of time investing in those jokes up front for the payoff later.
Yeah, I think anytime you can write sort of establishing ideas like I feel awkward around women, that's an early thing. You know, it's just
well, you should. You really should. I feel awkward when you're near women. And I'm way down in Tennessee.
When I'm around, you know, ladies, they're beautiful, and it just sort of, I get kind of this shy awkwardness around them. It's been like that since I was a kid. So when I established that later, the things that I talk about where that kind of is illustrated really it gets bigger laughs if that's established.
It's hard to misdirect them if there's no direction.
Well said. Yeah, you got to have at least 2 points heading in some direction before you can head left or right.
That's right. Well, cool, man. I think we might want to leave it there because that's. I'm going to have to write that down and ponder that some more. Because a lot of my comedy has no direction. So
I love your comedy, man. I just love the realness of it and the feelings behind it. It just makes me want to feel like I get to know you with every passing routine. So you're the master, man. You know how to do it.
Oh, thanks. I'm constantly trying to get more real with it without getting too weird with it.
It's a tightrope, isn't it? It's
Yeah, I mean, just in a nutshell, for me, doing a lot of shows for corporate groups, they don't really want to be disturbed at any point during the 60 minutes. They want to be entertained the entire time. So I have to find little ways to wrinkle it in there without them feeling too much like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
But a little bit of that's good because that way they don't leave the room.
That's right. That's very true. Well, you're the master of the corporate thing too. I could learn a lot just by watching how you deal with that world. So
I'll shoot you an email that proves opposite of that. But learn how I sent the money back to one corporate group.
Yeah. Well, everyone's got a show like that every once in a while.
Every once in a while. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you being on today.
My pleasure.
And I'll make sure I link to your comedy show, the iHeartRadio links, everything in the show notes so people can chase you down and find out more about this man who feels awkward around ladies.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Daren.
Thanks, Rick. Great to be on your show, man.
Thanks, bye. Hope you enjoyed that. Daren, as you can tell, is a deep thinker, and we got inside that skull of his and worked through some things. That was very interesting, and always good to hang out with my comedy brethren who are taking it the same path that I do, clean, but in a different direction and through different journeys. So very interesting. Hope you enjoyed that. If you do, check out Daren. It's DarenStreblow.com. It's STREBLOW. And Daren just has the one R in it, DarenStreblow.com. You can follow him on there and check out his iHeartRadio show. And you can download that iHeartRadio app and listen to it there, and it'll just show up every week right there in your stream. And always good stuff from Daren. Thanks again, Daren, for doing that. Thank you guys for listening. Join me in Nashville for the writing class if you can, November 7, 21, and 28. And lastly, don't forget to check out your free trial. Get that free audio download at audibletrial.com/School of Laughs. You get a 30-day free trial and a free download just for clicking that code. Thanks, guys. Take care, and I'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening to the School of Laughs podcast. If you'd like to hear more School of Laughs podcasts, you can find them on iTunes and Stitcher.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. For information on upcoming live and online classes, visit schooloflaughs.com. Until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, and stay funny.